Hey everyone, and welcome back along to the channel. It is a good day today. It is a new camera day. I have started the year off by feeling better, ordering a new camera. What better way to start a new year off than ordering a camera? But what is it? It is this absolute beauty. It is the RealitySoSubtle 6x17. That means the negative is 6 inches. That would be good. 6 centimeters by 17 centimeters. So it is basically a panoramic camera. Now I've always, ever since I got into pinhole photography, the 6x17 has always intrigued me. I've always kind of wanted one. When it comes to medium format, I'd say my favourite is 6x12. I love 6x12. But I've never bitten the bullet and brought a 6x17. So this popped up. This is RealitySoSubtle's newest design. And yeah, I went for it. So what are my first thoughts and impressions on this? Well, I've not actually been out and used it yet, so that is what today's video is. Getting it out of the box, it feels like a fantastically good quality product. It feels very well built. It has some weight to it. It is very well designed. You know, if you buy a Holger or something, get out of the box, it feels light and cheap and squeaky. This does not. This does not compare to a Holger. It is a fantastically built product. Now, the first things that stood out to me were, you know, I've got a thing for pinhole shutter systems. The pinhole shutter systems on this are actually sitting flush, which is quite a nice feature, because quite often what you get with some pinholes, shutter systems, if they're these sorts, they will stick out and they can quite often get knocked in a bag and opened and ruin that shot. So these are sitting flush, so that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Anyway, I'll show you a short little video of how to load this camera while I'm getting ready and we're heading to the beach. So loading this camera up is actually nice and easy. Firstly, undo these 2 screws on the top and remove the top section. 2 screws on the back. And once they're done, you can pop the back off and you have access to your film holder. I like this little touch here, made by James Guerin, and the date of manufacture. Now, another thing I really liked is the fact it is held in by magnets and has a lovely little snap as you load it back up. It holds it in there nice and secure to stop anything from moving about. So, loading the film. Take your film and feed it between these 2 rollers and put the film spool onto the little notches for it. Pull the backing paper through and then go back in on this little section on the back, and the backing paper will then sit nicely into little runners which run around the inside to keep that all held nice in place. Then back between these 2, get your spare film spool, put it in through this section here and fold your backing paper in through and through the little notch to hold it in place. Gently wind it on a little bit. I use this just to assist me. And we're good to load it back in the camera. Put the top section back in and screw it all together, and then the back plate to finish off. And that is it. We are good to go. So I started off at Birling Gap, a beautiful section on the Sussex coast, just along Beachy Head, with some steps leading down to the beach. It's an absolutely fantastic spot for photography. Low tide, you have some amazing rocks revealed. I've come here quite often and done a lot of videos here, so I thought this was the perfect time and the perfect place to test this camera out. Okay, so I've got my first shot set up. Again, I was just there, but the tide is coming in quick, and by the time I'd set up, my feet were almost underwater. So 6x17 is going to be quite a challenging format to shoot. It's not going to work for everything, it's going to work for some things. So I'm going to try maybe 4 different images today. So this is worth noting, you only get 4 shots with 6x17. It uses a lot of film. Anyway, I've composed this by following this line here. It should take me off to about there. And this one, so I should get quite a lot in. Now I'm going to be using the rise pinhole because I want to get more foreground. Why is that important on a camera like this? Because it has got a curved film plane. I'll go more on that in a minute. I was going to go for it now, but the tide is coming in still very quick, and I've got about a 14-second exposure. So that is going to drop the horizon level up, rise it, sorry, and keep me more foreground. Right, let's do this. Right, first exposure done. That was nice and simple. Right, while we're down here, let's advance this film on. Has a nice little cover. So I am using Fomapan today, which is great because they have real nice big bold letters on the back to see through these windows. Turn that, and then the film should go. So I'll go now to 5. At least if you overturn, you can turn it back. Right, 5. And that has all the little numbers there, so you don't get lost. So, the beach is kind of an easy spot. I think whatever film format, focal length, whatever, you're going to get something good at the beach. But like I said, with 6x17 it's a panoramic. It's going to suit some things, it's not going to suit other things. But one thing I feel, so I'm just walking up a big hill at the minute, it's cooking hot. It was freezing about half an hour ago. So something which I feel suits the panoramic is when you've got a subject which is maybe isolated, not much else around, so you can capture that image and actually show that subject in its environment of isolation. So I'm ending up to a tree which I photographed before, which I feel might work. So let's go. Morning, gorgeous. So I've come up to a favourite tree of mine on top of what is known as Went Hill, which is just above where I was on the beach a second ago. Feels like an hour ago walking up that hill, but it's pretty isolated. Ooh. It stands alone on this hill, being beaten by the weather that comes in from the west, and it's grown like that, which is pretty impressive. Now normally I photograph it from that side, but the sun is in full force heading in, and I don't really want to be photographing into the sun today, so I want to try and capture an image of this tree kind of alone in its environment up here on the South Downs. So this should just get a nice sliver of that. So let's try and set up a composition. Right, so I've got my shot set up. So hopefully what I should be capturing is off right down there to just the corner over there. So it's going to be a lot of sky. I'm thinking I'm probably going to use the full pinhole. I think that's the one, rise. So it's going to drop the horizon level down and just be more tree and sky. However, I'm also going to try using a filter on this, which is going to give me exposure time of around 1 minute 44 with Fomapan. My concern with filters on such a wide camera is because these are only plastic. When I used, not this one, I had another one on my zero image at 25mm, which is again really wide. Pinholes will capture absolutely everything. So any dust on there, it'll pick up any scratches on there that pick up. But when it goes really wide, I used the cheap filter on my zero image, and it actually picked up the imperfections on the surface of the filter at the edge. So where it was capturing such a harsh angle, it could actually see all the little divots. And as you looked at the filter closely, you could see all these little like pimples where the surface wasn't completely flat, and actually picked up all that on the edge. So this is format high tech, so it shouldn't be so bad, but I've had it a few years, so it's a little bit battered up. So that'll be interesting to see how that, and the sky will really expose how bad that is. So I don't know why I'm using it. So it has also got a little slot here, so if you're using a film, you can pull the little tab off and stick it in there if you're not using it all the time and you forget what you got. So I wasn't planning on it, but I'm gonna, while I'm up here, is photograph this barn. It's got quite a nice light on it, and one of the things I want to see is this camera has a curved film plane. Means the film curves inside. There's advantages and disadvantages to that, but one of the advantages is it should be even image all the way around, because the focal length stays the same. It's not stretching out. I'll add another little bit on explaining that a little bit more. But if you watched my last video on my zero image 4x5, I explained on the real wide the images stretch out because the light's coming in at such a harsh angle. Now hopefully on this one it shouldn't do it, because it should just fall onto the film evenly all the way around. So I want to capture this but keep the barn in the edge of the frame, where on most cameras it would start to distort and you know, squiffy. So I'm going to set this shot up with the barn in the corner and then just looking out at all over that. Right, so this is what we got. Following that line, we should be about there, and then all the way off down there. It's going to be a lot of nothing, but it could look good. I'll use a centre pinhole for this one. Going to have about a 7-second exposure. The thing I hate about shooting on days like this, your sun, is you end up getting your shadow in most of your shot. But this is at 70mm, so I'm kind of hoping, following that down, it should just cut me out. I'm hoping. Once the camera's open, I'll kind of move out of the way so my head's not in. But right, so while I'm heading back down the hill, let's explain flat plane versus curved planes in the pinhole camera. So the obvious difference with a curved plane and a flat plane is the film. On a flat plane, the film will sit flat across the back with a curve around on the inside. So what advantages and disadvantages does this have? Welcome to my arts and crafts section of the channel. So on a curved plane, as we have here, the distance from here to here will be exactly the same all the way around. This means the light will fall evenly on your whole image. The other thing it will also do is if you have an object over in the corner, it should be over there exactly the same with no distortion. On a flat plane, the distance from here to here and here to here can be massively different. Let's say this is 40 mil, this could be 80, depending on the format of the camera you're using. Like a 6x17, it could be a lot more. This means you get light fall off and the edges can get a little bit darker. Again, if you have an object over here, because the light is stretching off, the object will then become distorted slightly over there. So this makes curved plane sound pretty good, but what are the disadvantages? Because the film is sitting curved on the inside, as the light falls, it will fall nice and even across there, as long as the camera is square. But if you then want to tilt the camera to look up or down, the light will then start to fall differently. So take this for instance, if we look up, the light will then come around this way and you'll end up with a bowed horizon. Now this can all be adjusted and sorted out with a rise and fall pinhole, which are the three on the front. You have your center, you have your top, and you have your bottom. And the idea is not to use them all at the same time, but for the individual scene you're photographing. So on this quick diagram, you have the side view of a pinhole camera with its 3 pinholes. Now if you open any one of these and the camera is square, flat, that means the horizon level will be in line with that pinhole. Now if you are photographing a subject, one thing you have to remember is that that will appear upside down in your pinhole camera. So if we were to open the top pinhole, the light would fall along these lines, which means you would get a lot more sky and a lot less foreground. And if we open up the bottom pinhole, you get a lot more foreground and a lot less sky. And for the center one, it's an ovals 50-50, even horizon is going through the center. Now one of the things with this camera from my last shot is it actually has a tripod socket on the bottom and a bubble level on the top, or what would be the sides. So you can actually do vertical shots with the camera like that instead of like that. Now that's not something I'd normally do, but as it's got it, it is something I am going to try. I've seen a few people do it and it can look really good. But so I'm just here at this little church. I'm just going to find a composition which works. I kind of like from down here, but what I don't like is the fact that it's just mostly going to be my shadow. So I'm going to see what I can quickly find and what might work. Right, so what I'm going for, I should get them. The camera's not going to be wide enough to capture all the church if I shoot directly at it, so I'm just going to get this corner here and then up into the tree. Right, so I'm going to get about a 21-second exposure here. I'll tell you what, this would be lovely in colour film. The greens, the purples, the blues. I really should get some colour film and do that with my pinhole camera again. Right, let's capture this. Right, so that's all finished. 4 shots. Let's get them home and develop them. Okay, so the photos have all been developed, dried and scanned. Let's take a look at these. So first up we have this shot down at Birling Gap, and my first impressions on this were how much is actually captured. It is hugely wide, this camera, so I'm actually really impressed with the shot. I'm pleased with how it's come out, considering I was up against the tide as well. It looks pretty good. Obviously got my camera reflection shadow here, but the general detail across the image is pretty good actually. I'm actually really pleased with it. For the day it wasn't the best light, it was a bit harsh and I wasn't getting a lot of contrast in my shots and stuff, but overall for the day and everything I'm actually really happy with this. Right, let's go on to my second one. So this was the one where I was mostly just wanting to test out the filter, and it's actually fine. The cheaper filters I used previously were horrific on wide cameras, so I'm happy with that. That's good. Secondly, it's actually come out nice. It's probably, the tree's probably sitting higher than what I expected. I more expected something like that and then along, but that's just about getting used to the camera. The focal length and everything, it's going to take a little while, a few rolls to really be able to visualize what the shot's going to look like. But as a photo, I'm really actually pleased with that. This tree is normally much nicer photographed from the other side. It has a much nicer, it looks out over the sea, so it's a much nicer shot photographing it from the other side. But first, as a whole, I'm happy with that. Now this is where I wanted to test to see if that curved film plane added any distortion, which I knew it shouldn't, so I really wanted to test this, because if this was shot on a flat plane pinhole camera, this building would have really started to stretch out in the edges, but it's sitting absolutely perfect. It's not distorted at all, and generally actually as a shot I'm actually quite like it. I know there's not a lot going on over here, but I quite like, I don't know, it's just something that I quite like. I think if I was to do it again, I'd want to go back on a day where there's much nicer clouds, where there are actually clouds, and then probably use the rise pinhole to drop that horizon off down here somewhere. Again with a morning, so the light's sitting where it is on here. Then I think that would really work. So I think this shot's got potential, but to know that that curved film plane is doing what it's meant to do. No distortion in that building whatsoever. I think is absolutely fantastic. And only just caught my camera in it. So my fourth and final shot. Now this was something different for me, a vertical panoramic pinhole, but the more I sort of look at and look back at the video footage in colour, I think this would have been really nice. The greens, the purples, the blues, the light coming in on the church. The only thing I would have changed about the composition would have been to drop the camera lower, so these flowers are more of a thing in the foreground. They're kind of lost in this on black and white, but I'm quite pleased with it. It's just showing me what this camera can do, and it's certainly just kind of given me inspiration of what to go through with it next. So as a whole, I'm really pleased with these first images I've got from this. I've got lots of ideas on using this in other places. I'm still planning on doing a lensless London trip this year, so I'll be definitely taking it to that. But yeah, overall, absolutely fantastically impressed with this camera. Definitely worth the buy. So I'll be out with it a lot more. Anyway guys, I'll be having a blog post up on this shoot as well, where you can go check out all the photos. I'll leave the link below, so make sure you go check that out. And thank you very much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed the video and this learning process journey with me on this new camera. But till next time guys, thank you very much. Take care.